Thank you very much to Franziska and Marie, who have kindly agreed to share their experience on organizing and hosting a hybrid conference this year in September. They organized their computational biology conference in Switzerland and added on a day with the ELIXIR Innovation and SME Forum. So they included bringing in industry as well as academics to the event. And we'll hear a little presentation from them, and then we can open up the floor to a Q&A session and discussion on how to facilitate hybrid events. So I'll just hand over to you guys, and yeah, you just take it away. And thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Franziska. So yeah, you're sharing now. Yeah, the slide. So I'm Marie Dong. I'm leading the communications, scientific events, people and culture departments. And I'm with Franziska.
That's okay. All right. Yeah, so my name is Franziska Gruhl and I'm working as scientific events manager at SAB. And so today we would like to share with you some of the challenges, some of the questions we raised while organizing a hybrid event. And as example, we are using the BC2 Basel Computational Biology Conference, which took place in September this year, and which was organized as a hybrid event with one part taking place in Basel in the Congress Center, and the other part being online, where participants could join depending on, like, they couldn't maybe come to Basel or because of Corona restrictions, it didn't work out for them. And so BC2 is a conference that has quite a diverse program. We have tutorials, workshops, presentations by selected and invited speakers, as well as poster sessions. And as Katja already said, also this year we organized the Innovation and SME Forum together with ELIXIR in this context. And so altogether we had about 500, or exactly 533 registered participants throughout the whole event, of which 150 joined the tutorials and workshops. The tutorials and workshops were a little bit special because we decided to only organize them on site because it was too difficult to run them all in parallel as a hybrid event. From the 533 participants, we actually had around 85% on site in Basel and the remaining 15% joining virtually as remote participants. And a similar high trend we also saw for the ELIXIR forum. So 126 participants came on site to Basel to see the forum, and about 65 people joined remotely. And well, while organizing the event, we actually had to discuss a lot of things, come up with a lot of ideas, questions to make it kind of work, bringing the remote and the on-site participants together. And so from here, I'll let Marie continue.
Yeah, so we thought it's important to ask this question: why should we organize a hybrid conference? And to know why you take this decision, what lies behind, and what are your objectives will help you to organize it. And it's not that easy an answer to find. Of course, there are many reasons. For us, at least, it was important to seize the opportunity to connect researchers face to face besides the pandemic. So that was pro on-site. But of course, because of the pandemic, the environment was uncertain as it is today with travel restrictions and health risks. We had also in mind, and we still have them in mind, to do our best to reduce the CO2 footprint of the event. So going online was also in our minds, and probably hybrid was a good in between, because this would enable participants from faraway countries to join, and this could boost inclusivity as well for researchers from different backgrounds. But as I said, it's not an easy decision to make, and we thought it's really important to assess your financial risk to be sure that you can support the potential loss, because when you organize hybrid, you don't know actually how many people will join online versus on-site. So the best way to go is probably to do different scenarios budget-wise. So we assessed 20% on-site versus 80% online, the contrary, and 50-50, to have an idea of what's the maximum loss that we could have, and what's the best scenario that we should favor, actually. Keeping in mind, of course, not only the financial objective, but more also the reach that we can get. So we had also, we encounter at the end of the day that also people that pay only the online fee is much lower. I mean, the amount is much lower than what it costs to organize it hybrid and the online version of things. And yeah, so as we wrote, you know, there are different costs and we have to addition everything. We also found out that there was only a few grants that could cover hybrid events cost. So I don't know about all the countries, but at least in Switzerland. And of course, the insurance would not cover the cancellation fee. So we had to be also very strict on the deadlines that we had to take the decision to cancel the on-site version of the event. So we had a very strict planning so that we know, okay, at that point of time, now we have to go on-site anyway. Now we can still take the decision to go online only. At the end of the day, for us, for BC2, with these scenarios in mind, we decided to favor the on-site participation. So it was a difficult decision to make, and maybe you can change the slide, because for what triggered the decision was really the support that we had. In fact, with this assessment, financial assessment, organizational assessment, because it needs a lot of resources also to organize it hybrid. You have both sides of the event to organize. It's like almost 2 events to organize. Once we had all this clear, we could have a discussion with the scientific committee and with the board actually of the event, with the executive management of the institute, to discuss and to take the decision that it's okay if we don't have many people on site. Because of course, if we are in the scenario with 20% on site and we have booked the big Congress Center, I mean, you have to feel comfortable with this. Yeah, and I remember this meeting where our director said, okay, it's fine if we have 50 people in the room. And you know, once you discuss and you're all aligned on this, that if you have 50 people instead of 500 on site, you're fine with it, then you can work towards this objective, but without this big burden that you would have on your shoulders, because actually it's not something that you can control. So I think this is really a very important thing for me. It was really a trigger. It was really the moment where we thought, okay, we now have assessed everything. We know what we want to favor. We know we feel comfortable with the possibility to have very few people on site, but we want to take our chance because we want this event to happen like this. So then we had to think about how will we react, how will we communicate, how will we reorganize the space and activities if we come to that point where only few people come on site and most of the people join online. And we had to think of how we mitigate this risk. So we organized a COVID protection plan with testing possibilities at the entrance, for example, inclusive measures like childcare, for example, and we communicate very intensively on the added value of coming on site. And so yeah, that's the main message of this part. once you have assessed everything, you took your decision, you know how to adapt your offer depending on this objective. And still remaining is the question of the complexity of the online program. Until where do you want to go? So should you reproduce the on-site program fully for online participants, or should you adapt it? So this depends on your objective, of course, but also on your resources, as I said before. For example, we decided to organize tutorials and workshop only for on-site participants because it was too complicated, too much resources to put in to organize that for online participants as well. But you can think of organizing animated coffee breaks, social events online. This is not easy, but this brings added value for the online participation. So it all depends on your objective. Do you want to boost the online participation, or is it an addition to the on-site event? And that's the second solution that we've chosen for BC2. But you know, this is as well possible to organize both ways. So what will be the carrot for on-site participation? Carrot meaning why should people come on-site? So this is where we've put a lot of emphasis in our communication, in our promotion, for people to understand that, yeah, tutorials and workshop were only for on-site participants. Social events also, we organized quite nice things. But we had all other scientific content available for everyone. So as Francisca will show afterwards, regarding the posters, for example, this was the scientific content that we had available for both online and on-site participants. And yeah, we did our best also to integrate online participants during the sessions. But yeah, we thought we just had to be clear about the added value of on-site. Yeah, and the last point is the high demand to have access to recordings. It's a question that we probably always have, also when it's only on-site or only online. Yeah, it's a question of flexibility. We have not an answer to that question. Depends again on the resources. We decided not to give access to the full recording of the sessions. We thought if we put everything online as bulk, it would not be very useful. So we had a lot of work to cut everything. And we thought, well, that's the added value actually of participating to the event. So we decided not to give access to the recordings. But it's a question that is coming over and over. So we probably have to think it twice. That's it, I think, for this part. I'll let Francisca continue on how to engage remote participants concretely.
Okay, so as Mary said, I will be mainly focusing on the question of how to engage the participants and how we try to make the link between the on-site and the remote participants. And you can imagine it's not that easy actually, because if you run a fully virtual event, then you as an organizer, you're in front of your computer mostly, and you kind of see what also is shown to all the virtual participants. In fact, if you're on site, then you see what happens to all the on-site participants. But we were kind of in the in-between. So we as organizers were on site and running around, being on the technique, being in contact with the speakers on site, while at the same time kind of trying to imagine how do the remote participants feel. And so we put a lot of effort actually in this question of how are remote participants perceiving the conference already before. And so during the next slides, I will just go through the different points where we tried to connect them as much as possible to the on-site participants and to create the link where both groups of participants can see each other. And so the first big section is, of course, the presentations and the Q&A, so the questions that usually come after the presentation. And just to make the understanding of what we organized a little bit easier, I prepared a little sketch of how the whole setup was. So in principle, we always had a screen in the front. We had for each session 2 session chairs that had their own computer. We had the speaker who also had a computer. We had the on-site participants, and then we were in the back in the technique room together also with the cameras that were filming the whole event. And so our conference platform had Zoom as a video conference system integrated, which allowed us to connect the session chairs computers, the speaker computers, and our own computer to the session and to see what the online participants are seeing. And so, for example, one thing that we try to do is to make it as dynamic as possible by using different cameras that could zoom in or zoom out on the speaker or the session chairs or the on-site participants, just to create a little bit of a dynamic between the presentation that is shared, the speaker, the session chairs, the audience maybe asking questions. Then the second thing we wanted to also make sure that this is happening is that on-site participants are actually seeing the online participants. So for example, during the Q&A, online participants, they could ask questions either via the chat. The chat was monitored by the session chairs, and the session chairs would then read out loud the question. So the online participants could pose a question to the speaker, the session chair would read it out, the speaker would answer, and everything was followed by the camera, which creates the impression for the online participant that his question is really taken care of. The other possibility was to virtually raise the hand, in which case the session chair would then allow the participant to share his audio and to share his camera, which led to the online participants being projected on the big screen. So all the on-site participants could see the online participant and he could pose his question directly to the speaker. The speaker in most of the case would actually turn and look at the online participant, and there was a bit of a link created between the two of them. And for us, having this link or this dynamic between all the different actors of the hybrid event was really, really important to have. And one thing that we also realized is that it was really, really important to brief the remote speakers again on how to present their presentation and what to do, because it is slightly different from a purely virtual event. And so I would just like to briefly go through this. So we realized that it's really integral that the remote speaker has its camera on all the time, because this allowed us to switch between the slides and the speaker, the presenters. So online participants could see the two of them, and they were not, for example, during the Q&A, just confronted with the slides, but no face with it. Then another thing that we realized, this is also very, very important, in fact, for the on-site participants, is that you need the minimal content on the slide itself. So you cannot just have a slide with one word, because as an on-site participant, you're not seeing the speaker while he's presenting, when he's a remote speaker. So you only have a big screen with one word and no speaker behind, and this can be really distractive. So you're not focusing on the presentation anymore. And so the same thing also happens to the online participants. If there's just too little content on the slide, they are easily looking somewhere else or maybe doing something in the background. Then, of course, it's also important to have a clear and simple background, because the more information you have at the same time, the more distractive it is from the presentation. And what we were also trying to do was to, at least for the remote speakers, to integrate them virtually into the coffee break. So we had a virtual coffee break where remote participants and remote speakers could meet each other and continue the discussion. Because these kind of interactions, they are usually happening during the coffee break. You go to the coffee machine, you get your coffee, and you talk to the person next to you. But as an online participant, this is of course very, very difficult and very different, because you don't have anyone behind you or next to you. Nevertheless, the interaction between online participants and remote speakers remains difficult, because it requires a lot of animation. And on top of this, the interaction between online participants and on-site speakers is something that we didn't really manage to create, because it's just very difficult. So you can imagine that you maybe have to create an extra session where the on-site speaker joins a Zoom call so that the online people can talk to him. And so we decided to not put this additional investment into organizing the conference or into organizing our sessions, because we, again, really wanted that people are coming on site. if the COVID situation allows it for them. Then something that was, I think, rather special for our conference was the poster sessions. So we had poster sessions on-site and online in parallel. And our conference platform allowed us to have a virtual poster gallery. So we asked all poster presenters to upload their poster in a simplified format that was also adapted to the widescreen of the computer screen to our poster gallery that was searchable by keywords, by topic, or when the session would take place. And so on-site and online participants at the same time could go through the poster gallery, look at the posters, scroll through, kind of get an idea of what is going presented. And most importantly, also click on the poster and be connected to the virtual room behind the poster. So once you click on the poster, you get more information on it. You can have a PDF where you can zoom in and zoom out. You have the abstract keywords. But as I said, we also had a virtual room behind each poster. So these virtual rooms, they were based on Jitsi. And it allowed virtual poster presenters to get in touch with the other virtual participants to discuss the poster. But it also allowed on-site participants, for example, to still discuss the virtual poster with the person behind. And to facilitate this interaction in the virtual room, we also integrated a comment box as a way to get in touch with the virtual presenter. So participants could leave a comment saying, oh, I'm really interested in your poster. Would you be available to discuss with me at 3 o'clock or after the conference? And so this way we were hoping that there was a link being created between the different groups of participants and that they could discuss the research around the poster in a virtual environment, independent of whether they are on-site or online. And the online platform in general, we believe was very important to engage or make sure that the remote participants feel engaged. We had Zoom as a video conferencing tool integrated into the platform, so there was no need to install anything. People just needed to click on a little camera symbol and they were connected to the session. It was very easy to switch between sessions. You just had to click on another camera in the conference program. We also had a personal agenda that people could fill out, add the posters they wanted to look at, or add sessions they wanted to look at to their personal agenda. The poster gallery, as already shown, allowed people to interact with each other. And so having this kind of one tool or all tools in one integrated platform really facilitated the whole interaction with participants online, but also on site. And finally, something we did not do at BC2, but which really, depending on the objective you have, is very important to think about is the social events, because people still want to meet each other. They want to talk. We heard earlier that it's just nice to have a coffee to meet other participants of the course or the workshop or the conference. And so for BC2, our objective was to have as many people as possible on site. So that's why we only organized social events on site. But we had another big conference last year that we organized, the SIBDays, where we organized a fully virtual event, and there we really tried to add additional social events. For example, we had a Spotify playlist where people could add songs and listen to them before and after. And so in the beginning, we were a little bit worried that people would not use it and that's maybe something weird to do, but I actually had quite a lot of feedback from people saying, oh, this was great. So I was going through the abstracts and the posters while listening to the music. And I'm really surprised about the variety, and I discovered some new songs. So it was a rather surprisingly good feedback we had. We also organized yoga courses and CrossFit courses before and after the sessions to relax people a little bit, because sitting the whole day in front of a computer can be really demanding. And so this is something we will, I think, for the next edition of BC2 maybe think a little bit more about. So do we again have as an objective to make as many people as possible come to Basel, or is there something that we also would like to create online for the participants, something social that we want to create for the online participants so that they can better meet and interact with each other? And so this was kind of the summary what we did to to make sure that the remote participants feel connected to a conference that is mainly organized on site. And I think from here, Marie continues.
Well, I think we're there actually, because that was about the sharing of our experience and how we thought of things and what we organized, really our pure experience. But then we would be very happy to know how you imagine your future events. It would be very useful to have a sense of the trend. Where are we going to go? I mean, if there would not be any restrictions about traveling, would all events come back to on-site? We don't think so, actually. People took the habit to participate to online events. And even if we are very happy to meet face-to-face, I mean, we have some other constraints, and I must admit, I mean, online participation is also very convenient sometimes. So yeah, it would be useful to know how you feel about that. We heard, for example, some group leaders saying, okay, I'm not gonna cross the ocean again to participate in a scientific conference. So for him, it was clear that he would participate only to conferences where he could go with the train, for example. So, okay, it's a way of organizing his schedule as well. And for myself, for example, I was thinking, okay, I probably choose one event per year where I would like to be on site, and the rest I will do online. So what are really the trends? Should we really invest in hybrid solutions, in online solutions? And I think this is really the best way to know is to discuss with you guys. And also at the ELIXIR level, it would be very useful if we had a kind of tracking. I don't know how we can organize that, but if we could have a way of following up to really have a sense of trend and follow up on what's done in the network would be very useful, I think, for all of us. So yeah, that's the question we wanted to ask you. No, Francie, if you want to add anything.
No, I think you said everything. For us, it's really, we have the feeling that many ideas are reinvented again and again by different people, different conferences, and to just sit once together to discuss with all the conference organizers is actually something that we wanted to do, and to just also get maybe ideas and inspiration from other people.
Mm-hmm. Kathy, you raise your hand.
I did raise my hand because I'm also a participant. So I just wanted to maybe leave a comment, because this is something I have noticed in the kind of events that we have coming up, that a lot of people initially say they are really keen to go back face to face, and but then when it actually comes to traveling and, like, you know, going somewhere else, all of a sudden people are not so keen anymore. So there is a bit of discrepancy between people really wanting to go places and interacting, but then when it actually comes down to the traveling, they are still a bit reluctant. And I don't know if it's still due to the travel restrictions and all the faff it currently is to leave the country and come back. But I do think that there is a point to make for investing in hybrid options. And then, of course, considering environmental practices, this is going to become a lot more important. And I think a lot of people will have to justify traveling a lot more to their employers. And I remember before the pandemic started, we actually had said in the ELIXIR Hub, oh, we need to cut down on travel. We need to really think through where we send someone, how many people we send there. Are there different solutions, maybe not flying, taking the train, etc. And I mean, hybrid events are the optimal solution for not traveling. So I wonder if there is really a point for us to invest in those kind of hybrid solutions. Yeah, that's all I had to say. I see there are other.
No, thank you. It's a shared feeling. Danielle, maybe? So am I moderating here? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it's easier, I think.
Please, Danielle,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hi, hello. I work as in the training activities as project manager in the MWBI, and I'm involved in EOSC Live, an European project. And last July, we did a brainstorming workshop, exchange of experience style, informal, about organizing hybrid workshops. So what were also barriers for people, or their thoughts or their experiences. And as an icebreaker activity, we did we asked people to rank how likely or unlikely they would attend face-to-face. They would attend an event face-to-face or remote. So what we did was give them a list of 10 events and tell them you have to attend them all in 1 year. So how would you prioritize? Because also I think it's difficult to decide for an event if we see them as a single event. But now when we go back to seeing that we have 10 or 20 events in 1 year, then the situation is going to be different. Because yeah, going face-to-face and being with colleagues is very nice, but if you have 3 events in a month, then the situation, your opinion probably changes. And what we saw, it was one of the first things was the length of the event. So of course, if it's a 5 days event, you are more interested in going face-to-face. If it's for a 3 hours meeting, probably you want to do it online. But it was also about the purpose. So when you had a very clear purpose to participate, like yourself, not that you had to be the main organizer, but if you were just a participant that you were mainly going to listen and maybe ask questions, or if you were more involved in some way, or also if the meeting is about maybe more establishing relationships for the future, when there's something about really connecting with the people, for example, maybe for discussing a future project or something. So I just wanted to share that. And thank you for the presentation, by the way, very nice.
Thank you. I think you're right. It's completely a question of priorities. And I have the feeling also that there are so many possibilities with online events. I have the feeling it multiplied also the possibilities for everyone. So yeah, it's a decision to make all together. I mean, when we look at the whole year. But please, David, share with us.
Yeah, I'd echo those thoughts. This is a really useful conversation, and I would love to see this sort of talk being made available more often, that we can catch up with what worked, what didn't, what people did, what ideas tried. I love the idea of Spotify. I thought that was a fantastic thing. I'm glad it worked. I have a series of questions. I'm going to run through some of them if I can, but perhaps I'll put some into an email over there. How did you get a response from those who attended in person, how they felt the event worked? My thinking that if I'm attending in person, it is to meet with other people. If 3/4 of the other people are remote, I'm missing out on my purpose for being there. Was that something you picked up, or were people?
Well, we had lots of people. I mean, we have 85% of people on site. So,
oh, I beg your pardon. I thought it was the other way around. Right.
No, we have, yeah, so 500 people on site, more than 500.
Okay, right,
so it was not a real question, but for online participants, it would have been a question.
Yeah.
Probably. Did you meet with other online participants? Okay. I don't think we asked the question, did we?
Indirectly, I think we asked it. So we had, I think some of the online participants were a little bit disappointed by, for example, during the poster sessions, there were only very few people coming visiting the poster. And so this is something we didn't know how to better communicate on it. So I had contacted all participants before, all online participants also, to tell them, look, there's the online poster session. It is very easy to see the other person, to talk to it, but then very few people actually did it. And so we don't know if this is because we did not communicate very well on it, so people didn't know how to do it, or whether you as a participant were maybe more interested in the talks and you don't care so much about the poster session. And so to the few people that had an online poster, so that were only presenting the poster online, in the end, what I suggested to them to do was to just visit each other and to have a conversation around their poster, even though it's completely maybe disconnected or disrelated from your topic. And this then worked. So the feedback I got from this, so I was in touch with them via Slack because we had a Slack channel for all the online participants. So they told me that it was quite nice. They hadn't thought about it before. And so they were happy that I kind of put them in contact to do it. And so I think this was really a matter of better communicating, maybe, and forcing people a little bit in this direction of doing the first step.
No, I completely agree. A good online poster session, if anybody figures out how to make that work, I would love to hear it. It's a real challenge.
But hybrid is a challenge, actually, because the presenters are not in front of their computer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For those who attended in person, did you provide, arrange for PCR tests or something to be available so they've got travel arrangements in place when they return?
Yeah, they had testing, available, but it was not PCR.
But whatever requirements they would need, I think now to get back to the UK, you need to demonstrate some form of test before you can travel, and that was all in hand.
Yeah, we arranged tests that in a way that, so the conference was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we didn't have tests on Wednesday because the tests on Tuesday would still be valid for 48 hours, so it was enough to travel back. So during the conference, you could kind of do an antigen test if this was accepted for traveling. So we had a few cases where you needed a PCR test, but for most of the people, the testing provided on site was enough to also travel back.
Okay, and final question: the technical support that you used to run the camera, the microphones, and everything else, was that run by in-house? Was that your own people doing that, or did you bring in a company?
It was from the Congress Center.
So it was a professional group brought in.
Yes.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, but still, we found out the first day that we didn't have the right number of technicians, because there are so many things to deal with at the same time, you know. So in the morning, the first hour, it was hectic, you know, running around everywhere, because we found out that there was not enough people behind the scene to, you know, push the buttons. So it's like this. So we changed the format, and then it was okay. It was during the ELIXIR forum. So the first hour was a bit hectic. Yeah.
I think we've all been there. We feel the pain. Thank you.
Yes, Niels.
Hi.
Hi.
First off, thank you for the great talk. I have a two-part question. The first one would be, maybe I missed it, but were the fees the same, or were they depending whether you are in person or virtually attending?
No, we had different fees. So different fees for online, for on-site, and then for academic students, industry and stuff. So.
Okay. So was it, if you want to answer, was it higher for online participation, or was it lower for online participation?
No, it was a lot lower. I don't remember exactly the fees, but
about half the price.
Yeah, about half the price, but actually it was too low. If we would have had 80% of the people online, it would have led us to a big loss, I would say, because there are lots of costs associated with the hybrid event. Online is much cheaper, but when it's hybrid, when you have the presenters on site and you have the participants online, is lots of costs associated with this. I think, Francie, we talked about 30,000 Swiss francs more, just because we wanted to have it hybrid compared to only on-site. Well, these are Swiss costs. I mean, Swiss prices are probably higher, but anyway.
This is the camera that we had on top of this, better microphones so that the audio would be okay. The technical stuff behind, kind of looking on the camera, moving it around, integrating it into Zoom. Yeah. So it's all these kind of things we first didn't think about, but that are really, really important if you want to organize a good hybrid event.
So it would not have covered all the costs. I mean,
I thought so, because we were talking about pricing earlier. Attending a virtual or hybrid event is cheaper for the attendees, but it may be much more pricing for those who host it.
That's true.
The second part of my question is, maybe that's difficult to answer, but do you have a feeling about the participation of the attendees? Did that change if there were in-person or virtual attendees, or was it like, were both parties incentivized enough to participate actively in the conference?
Well, do you have a direct answer to that, Francie?
So I think virtual participants were a little bit shyer in participating and actively asking a question. So I think, for example, during the Q&A, we had more on-site participants asking a question than online participants. And then there was also a huge difference between just putting your question into the chat or actually switching on your camera and asking it in front of the audience. If this was your question. Otherwise, in terms of composition of groups, saying, for example, more PhD students are joining online versus on-site and so on. Well, I have to say we didn't really investigate this, but we saw a difference that people from, let's say, lower middle income countries, they were overrepresented in the virtual participants. Yeah. And then there were a lot of on-site participants from Switzerland itself.
No, I was thinking about if the virtual environment incentivized people to actually participate, or is it, like you said, most people are maybe more shy to ask the question virtually. Okay, thank you very much for the answers.
You're welcome. Femke?
Yes.
You have a question?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, very interesting. My question was about the work. I mean, I've organized full face-to-face conferences. I've organized full virtual conferences. I never did a hybrid version. I think, okay, a full virtual conference is a little bit less work than a full face-to-face conference. I think it's still a lot of work, by the way, but it is less work. But if I think about organizing a hybrid conference, it looks like double, like doing it both, like a face-to-face on top of, or hybrid on top of a face-to-face. And that's what really worries me, because I mean, you need a lot of capacity of people helping out to organize it, I think. You need a lot of capacity to think through all the different I don't know, the online participants. You have to think how they are into this conference, how they see things, how they hear things. You have to think about the on-site people. You have to think through all scenarios. You have to do the technique. You have to still organize all the catering stuff. How did you do that? I mean, did you find it a lot more work, or was it okay? That's mainly my question, because it's worrying me.
I think I can just begin, let you complete, Franziska. I think it's really why we thought it's important to emphasize the fact that your scenario will help you. I mean, if you want to do a hybrid event, doing exactly an online event plus an on-site event is different than doing what we did. We did an on-site event that was available online. So we pushed very strongly on the on-site part of the event. And we did everything we could in a resourced, managed way for the online participants. But if you want to provide the same exact program on each side, it's probably a lot more work, but we could not afford that. And we were afraid that the online program is then too attractive and we have less people on site. So we had to give incentives for people to join on site, actually. So that's why really coming back to your scenario, your favorite scenario is really important. If you don't care, you want a 50-50, you're happy with that, then you probably need to organize 2 events for one. For us, I think it was a lot of work, obviously. Franziska can say clearly. Yeah, how would you answer that, Franzi?
I think in the same way also, like we had a clear objective for the on-site conference. So we tried to do as much as possible for the on-site conference, whereas doing a little less for the online conference. For just to give you an example, so we had a Slack workspace for all the online participants, where we had different channels for the conference, for the ELIXIR forum, for the poster session. And last year, when we ran the virtual event, we animated the whole Slack space because we had a huge consensus to do as many interactions as possible online. So this year, we just created the workspace. I put some very basic information. If there were questions, I answered them, but we did not put any more effort into animating it, into making sure people write, people communicate, etc., because it was not our objective. And we also, to be honest, didn't have the capacity to do it on top of this. So we would have required another person to just be available for the online moderation.
Yeah, same for coffee breaks. Or we try to have an interaction with an online presenter, to have this coffee break where people could meet with her. But apart from that, all presenters were on site. So we didn't have that possibility actually to put them in a virtual room to discuss with the online participants informally. So yes, all this part that we had during the virtual event, we didn't organize it that way.
Okay, I understand, but I can also see that, I mean, you ask a little bit less fee, lower fee for the online participation. So you can also say, okay, well, if you participate only online, then you also get less. You get less.
I think it's normal, no? Because you don't have the catering, you don't have the big party, exactly. you don't have all these costs for the online participants. So I'm not sure they would be willing to pay the same anyway.
No,
even if you organize a virtual coffee break, you don't pay for the coffee. So
that's true. Yeah. Okay. And I had another, because it's good what you say. I can see how you put an emphasis on the on-site, because you want as many as people you can get on-site. That's preferred, of course. I would like that too, of course, if I would do something like that.
Well, it all depends on the size. Actually, the size of the place that you rent, it's the biggest cost as well.
Yeah,
so it all depends on this.
Another small practical thing, I was wondering, did you organize parallel sessions or only a plenary session?
Yes.
We had, sorry.
Please go ahead.
We had parallel sessions, so we had 2 sessions in parallel. Which basically also means we had double the staff, so 2 technical rooms, 2 also people from us always being in the technical room, making sure that everybody knows who's the next speaker, which presentation needs to be shared, etc.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that, because it would have already saved some technical. If you would only have had a parallel or a plenary session, but it's nice to have parallel sessions. So okay.
And I think this was, for example, so one of the reasons why we didn't organize tutorials and workshops online was also that just doing 7 things in parallel or 10 things in parallel, it gets too much. It's not handleable by a small team like we are, and like probably many institutions have.
Yeah. Okay.
And even for the tutorials organizers, I mean, taking care of a group on site and then online to teach is not really easy to do.
No, it's really difficult. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, and then Kathy.
Yes, you mentioned in the presentation about giving time for remote participants during to meet the speakers. Did that happen? I mean, even if you did give the time, did actually that interaction happen between remote speakers and on-site participants, or the other way around?
Yeah, well, you can, Francis, you can tell about the SIP days last year, maybe, because this is where we organized this really intensively for each speaker, actually.
Yes, I can give the example of the SIP days, and maybe Kati, you can say something about the ELIXIR forum, because that was the context where we tried it also in the context of EC2. So at the other conference that we organized last year, we basically we did the Q&A in a rather unclassical way. So we had all the presentations without Q&A, and then we had the big Q&A session with all the speakers and all the participants together. And so what we realized is that first there are fewer participants, maybe half of the participants showed up for the Q&A, but then these were the participants that were actually really interested in the Q&A. And so they were maybe the first 5-10 minutes that were a little bit slow, so people didn't really know how to start the conversation, but then once it was started, it was very, very interactive. So a lot of people started to put their camera, asking questions, interacting. And I think having the fact that all the speakers were together in the same room only helped, because you could, depending on what your background was, ask different questions to different people. And it was not this classical one speaker, one participant question set up, which I think maybe makes it sometimes a little bit difficult to ask your question, because you're really exposed. And so in this Q&A where everybody was together, I think, yeah, the fact that everybody was together kind of helped the conversation to develop. And then Katja, I don't know if you want to say something about the ELIXIR program.
I mean, actually, specifically for that question, so earlier this year we ran another SME forum, which we had divided into 3 half days. I'll share the agenda in the chat box, where we had divided the days under different topics, and after all the presentations were concluded, we always had a meet the speaker Zoom breakout session. But this was for a virtual event, for a completely virtual event. So we had for each speaker a breakout room, and participants could just go into that breakout room by themselves and then talk to the speaker. So this worked actually quite well. Then at the Swiss hybrid event, I was in that room for the virtual participants together with Serena, who was one of the keynote speakers. And this was during a break. So I think a lot of people took the occasion to go to the bathroom and make themselves a coffee, but some of them stayed around. So we had, I think, 1 or 2 people who really actively engaged and asked questions, and the others were on mute. I don't know if they were on mute and in the room or on mute doing something else. Yeah, so this was the experience.
Okay, so okay, thanks for that. Just to clarify, the experience that you mentioned, Francisca, there they were not all online. Like the speakers were face to face, and all the participants were together for all the but we're remote. I mean, so, my question is, no, it's just because I have the feeling that when speakers and participants are in the same format, you might have a good Q&A, but when it's like that the speakers have to dedicate their coffee break to see their questions, if the speakers are virtual, they will want to have a break from the screen, and if the speakers are face-to-face, they will want to interact with the people face-to-face in the coffee breaks. So that was my question, like, was there if it was successful interaction between participants and speakers when they were in different formats?
We didn't try that, actually.
No, I remember that we discussed it at some point, whether it would be possible to take the speaker, to put him in a room with a computer, maybe the session shares together, and to create this link. But for time reasons and also staff reasons, we didn't do this in the end. But I think it would also require that you contact the speaker, you explain to him why, you announce it widely so that participants will join the session. And I think you absolutely need a good session chair or moderator who kind of who breaks the ice in the beginning.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the online on-site participants, they would like to meet also the speaker at the coffee break and discuss with them. And if you take the speakers out for the online participants, is it more fair? I don't know. I mean,
no, I agree. Just that I think I had misunderstood when you were presenting it, so that's why I was a bit curious.
No, it's a point. I mean, it's a point that we've made about the fact that we could not find the right solution to make the link between on-site speakers and online participants. I mean, they had only the possibilities to ask their questions during the Q&A. They could ask their question with their face on the screen so we could see them, but having an informal discussion, this was not actually possible.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, Cassie, you still had a question, right?
Yeah. So my question was a bit around sponsorship, because for the BC2 conference, you normally get sponsors in. And I was wondering if you found it more difficult this year, and if you had any specific offerings that catered more to, like, you know, that hybrid approach, or was it still the same offering that you had for the face-to-face conference?
I think it was the same offering we had for face-to-face conference. So we did not include any hybrid or online presence of the sponsors, because so I've joined a few conferences before, and I always had the impression that this doesn't work at all, that nobody is visiting the virtual booth, or that nobody is really interested virtually speaking with the sponsors. And so we said, okay, better to make sure that they are very happy on site than kind of creating something online where we're not sure that it works and which maybe leaves a negative impression.
Elsa is here. I see her face. So Elsa is part of the team, and she handled the relations with all the sponsors. Do you have anything to add on this?
I found it a little bit hard to find sponsor. I contacted Cathy about this subject because of the corona situation. They were afraid that maybe we will cancel it and be completely online. And to be honest, I didn't find any good solution for sponsor if we were completely online.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably the hybrid mode is a bit scaring for sponsors, because there is the risk that nobody shows up, and they would pay for 50 people in the room. So, well, the prices we proposed are very low, but still, it's a risk for them.
And I didn't find any solution for example, online booths that are really cool, or you need to invest a lot, but still it's hard to bring the people to go to the online booth.
Yeah.
Just a question from Francie, from David, about the Zoom. So we used Zoom for the online participant, and the people that were online had access to the platform, and they could click on the small icon, the camera, and then a fenster would pop up, the window would pop up, but they wouldn't have access to the Zoom link. Right?
So
is it clear for you, David, from your question? And I think Nicola has asked the same. Couldn't registered participants still share the link the camera icon points to? The link was not accessible, actually. It was, you click or you don't.
Yeah. Elsa just gave me an answer that you used a platform and embedded it on a web page, whereas in any Zoom window right now, under the left-hand corner, there's a little green shield. All of us could get the Zoom link from there, and we could share that with a colleague. I understand that wasn't a possibility. Is that right?
No. No, so in theory not. So what we did, I think we added the Zoom link because during the days last year, we had the experience that a lot of people didn't understand that you just had to click on the camera, and so we got a lot of questions saying, "But how do I connect?" Because it seemed too easy. So we still added somewhere a little bit hidden the link saying, "Okay, in case you have problems, here you can connect." Yep. We had the waiting room where I would also just briefly scan the names, because I mean I've seen the participants list, so most of the names somewhat seem familiar. Yep. And then our platform also, so we didn't use the setting, but we would have had the possibility to say that you can only connect from one platform or one device. So as soon as someone would share the link and someone with the same account would log in from another device, it would log out the first one. So we have this flexibility to do. which we didn't use, but if we really wanted to avoid that someone finds a way of sharing it, then this is something we can activate.
I like that. That's a really good idea. I don't think it's a problem yet, but as more hybrid events or more online things happen and people are paying for it, they're going to want to be confident that they need to pay to join and others can't join without paying. I think that's a really nice way you've got going there.
Yeah, and sometimes you get puzzled with all these links, and you register to an event and you don't remember if you received an email with the link, and yeah, very often I get lost with all these links. I have them, or I don't. Did I register right or not? Here, at least you go to the platform where you registered, and you have everything on site. I mean, on this website only. So just if nobody has more questions on the concrete aspects, may I ask again this question? How do we think that things will evolve? Or Kathy, do you have any idea if at the level of ELIXIR, if we would have a way of following up on this to have an idea of the trends? Really, it's very, very important, I think, to know before it happens.
I think good that David's on the call, because he's very involved in organizing the kind of hybrid virtual events, etc. I don't know if you've already got something in place to track that, or if you're...
We're not tracking it, but we are now planning for the all hands event, 300 people in June. And last year we had similar experience. We've gone through the same thought processes as you have. You've come up with slightly different ideas. It's absolutely fascinating to hear how you've made things work, that we have got problems we need to resolve. And I completely agree. To find somewhere where we could capture this and make it available for other people in similar situations would be fantastic.
Yeah, or have again this sort of discussion at one point of time. I had a discussion last Friday also with the ladies organizing ECCV in Barcelona. And yeah, they were happy also to have this discussion. I think it's very useful for all of us to know, the others' ideas and what are in participants' minds. I mean, we are all participants in a way, but knowing, what is the best, what do people want, and where to focus our resources.
Do you, in the end, buy any technology for facilitating hybrid events, or did you just rent whatever the conference center had?
Well, for you mean for the on-site cameras and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, no, we used what the conference center had, but since it's a big conference center, they had everything, and they had time to work on this, because we were the first conference they had since the beginning of the crisis. And then the platform, we developed it with a web agency. So for ourselves, actually.
I don't know, David, if we have we purchased anything, or are we going to, or what does that look like?
We've got some pretty small microphones. I actually got one here that they work very nicely for a meeting of up to 20 people. And there's the OWL camera that's a built-in microphone speaker and cameras, and that works quite nicely. But again, no way would it handle anything the size that you're describing there. So I think you're right that you need to go down the route of a professional company coming in to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how it, so, I mean, we recently had the biohackathon, and there was virtual participation.
Yep.
And I, for example, came in as a virtual participant, and I ran a pub quiz. So I was kind of the quiz master, and then David was on site and facilitated the interaction. I don't know, David, I wasn't in the room, so I can say very little because I couldn't see the participants. So for me, it was like talking at the camera for 2 hours, hoping for the best. Maybe you want to share how, because you had these OWL cameras and
Yeah, we did. We had these cameras, but it was a very different activity. It's not a traditional conference. It is very much a working activity. People were very engaged. They signed up for the week. I think we had over attendance as well. We had 150 in the room and 180 online at different times. but also any event where you've got a quiz happening and free drinks on the other side of the bar, then you're always going to get a good engagement, and that worked very nicely. We did not get a remote engagement for that. We had 2 people, I think, out of 150 who could have joined online. So it was entirely in the room, watching Kathy on a screen. I think it was about 2 meters high. So it was very intense.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if I may comment, I think we will have to, I mean, for the future, it's again about thinking more about the type of event. Like, I think it's more clear that if you go on site, you're going to have more engagement, social interaction, and everything. So at least you have to make sure that the scientific part, the technical part works very well online, because that's what there is going to matter more for people who are remote, and maybe in terms of expectations, have that clear. And also what David was saying, that you need to go for full professional, like, I don't know, equipment or something. I think it depends on the type of event. Definitely, if you're going to organize like a big conference, I think you really need someone really professional. But if you plan to do some small workshop or something, maybe it's something you can manage most of it by yourself or by your team, not a single person. It's going to require a lot of time, but you know, if you're thinking about, I don't know, a hybrid workshop with your students, for example, or something like that, it's very different.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, each situation is very different. That's for sure. That's for sure. You have to adapt to what the people are looking for joining the event. But I completely agree with you. It's a given that technology and scientific content should be perfect. I mean, technology should be perfect, and scientific content should be available to all the participants. I mean, that's why they come. Then the on-site participants look for more social interactions, probably, and they come for that. But yeah, you're completely right. Then it depends on the nature of the event.
Yeah. I think also what we did is we integrated several technologies, so we couldn't really find one technology solution. So we used Zoom, we had Jitsi, we used Slack, and everything integrated in the platform that we had available to create the best interaction possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we're there. Very happy to hear about your experiences in the future again. David, let us know about your technical challenges.
I'll nominate Kathy to give a presentation on how the all hands goes.
Yeah.
So the one other thing that I was kind of thinking about just now is, I guess, a thing that makes or breaks the event is to have a good moderator. And I mean, we've spoken about this in the past in the context of the industry focus group, that we should create a list of people who, you know, we know are good at that.
Yeah.
So for example, the moderator we had for the SME event in Switzerland, I thought was really great. So he did a fantastic job. Of course, I'm not entirely sure how happy those people are for their data to be shared, because then they become like an event moderator.
Oh, Danielle is very happy with it, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is probably something that would be helpful. And I think what also would be helpful is if we had some list where we could, you know, see different engagement opportunities. So a lot of us are using Slido and Menti and murals and all sorts of stuff. But every time you organize an event, you're like, oh my God, what do I need to do? And what was the name of this thing again? So maybe this would be helpful as well. We would put that together. I think these are the two things that we could maybe do from the hub that we could share with the nodes. But is there anything else you can maybe think of that we in the hub could maybe put together that would help everyone?
so I'm not sure if this is really something that you can put together, but what we realized what was extremely important was to brief people on what was happening, how it was happening, in which order it was happening. So at the virtual event we had last year, we ran individual briefings with all session chairs where we explained to them who will be talking at what point, what is their role, what are they supposed to do, how to handle the platform. And we did something similar this year as well, but in a smaller scale, just again, telling them how to use the platform, what to do, in which order. And I think it helped a lot just to get them familiar with what their role was, because moderating a virtual event, moderating a hybrid event is very different from just having on-site people. And I felt that, for example, this year, the session chairs, they were extremely happy that I was there in the beginning, that I showed them the computer, that we looked at Zoom again, which is something where everybody would say, but by now you know how to use Zoom, but still in the situation itself, it's very important just to be there and to talk to people and to let them know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So probably checklist. So checklist could be useful to share, because we reinvent each time. I mean, from last year to this year, I mean, the brief was slightly different, but in a way, there is a brief for hybrid, there is a brief for online and for on-site, but people are used to on-sites. So yeah, probably we could share some. I don't remember if we wrote everything, but yeah, we could share somehow some briefs.
I think from last year, for sure, we have it written.
That would be great if you could share that. Yeah, we can make that available. So, I mean, I'm putting together. In our Converge grant, there is a deliverable on how to engage with the private sector, and like one focus area is on how to organize events. So I think if I could incorporate a checklist there, I mean, this is focusing more on like organizing the innovation and SME events, but I mean, this could be probably used for any other type of event as well.
Sure.
That would be great. Yeah, be really good. Because we've got Daniel here, I actually was wondering, you at the EBI, because you've got like this huge training program, have you made any changes to the training program in regards to hybrid events? And have you bought any new technology or changed any of the training courses?
Well, the thing is that, well, first that I joined in September 2020, so I cannot really say about what was happening before. But what I wanted just to mention that because EBI plans their courses so much in advance, that we still haven't started with face-to-face courses, because it had to be decided in May, the courses that are happening now, let's say. Right now we're starting to plan face-to-face courses already. I wouldn't say that it's not going to be like hybrid, but what we are trying to consider is if, for example, you do some of the sessions online before the event, so then the course itself, maybe it's a bit more reduced, so there's more space, for example, for hands-on. Also, in terms of maybe reducing costs, if some speakers can be remote, if they're only coming for one session or something like this. Those are things that we are considering. And I wanted to mention, and in terms of equipment, again, as we have not started face-to-face, I know that they have also talked about the owls that David mentioned. I think it was David, something that we have been on site. But other than that, I think because the training rooms were already quite new in terms of technology, I think there have not been major changes.
Okay, thanks. I didn't have any more questions from my side, but if anyone else had any more suggestions of, what we should do on an ELIXIR-wide level. Oh no, David.
Well, it's a question that come up in a number of circumstances of participants wanting to deliver a pre-recorded call, presentation online, rather than doing it live. Yeah. We've had mixed responses to that. I just wondered what other people's experience might have been. Certainly some presenters have objected to being asked to do this simply because they felt they were being asked to become BBC presenters, that they would want to do a professional level talk, and they were going over it several times. They were reviewing it. It wasn't good enough. They would re-record it again. And in the end, they took half a day to present what would have been a 10-minute talk. On the other hand, it makes life a lot easier from a coordinator's point of view. You just press play and you know what time it's going to finish, and you know you've got 5 minutes for questions at the end of it. I just wondered how people have found that.
Yeah, true. I remember a discussion with a PI telling me that he was doing that with his classes, actually, at university. He was pre-recording his classes and then send it to his students, and then just have the time together just to discuss about the topic and engage in discussion, you know, Q&A. I thought it was very interesting. But yeah, I don't know if it breaks the dynamic. I mean, to launch a pre-recording, I don't know if as a participant, I've never experienced it, but I don't know if it breaks something.
In the masters I am following now, I had the case, and at first I was a little bit surprised because I thought, okay, then it will be recorded, but at the end the teacher was again there and was answering the questions, so I thought actually it's not so bad, because I guess she had more time to prepare and to do it again if it wasn't good enough. So that was a little bit unusual, but not so bad.
Maybe you have an experience with this, Daniel and Dana?
Yeah, in terms of pre-recording presentations, well, one thing we saw is that apparently participants are more engaged when the pre-recorded presentations are not perfect. You know, like when they don't really look like a machine, but when they are more like natural. Something that where we have used a lot of pre-recorded presentations has been in the summer school of a project called ELIXIR, a European project. When we went into remote, so this summer school, you have participants from all over the world, which is something also happen in your conferences and everything. So this helps a lot with the time zone differences, because we schedule the pre-recorded presentations at the beginning of the day. And this meant that a participant in some time zone might prefer to watch the pre-recorded presentation the evening before, because for them it's a good time, so they don't have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start a course. You know, so that it's good for, it gives you flexibility with the time zones. But just to say that it can also mean a lot of work, not because of recording several times, but actually getting your recordings from your speakers or your participants, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dana, what do you think?
Yeah, first of all, sorry that I joined late. I just had the events platform. So we recently ran the conference with EBI, with the Daniel team, and it was a 1-week conference where we had about 30 speakers, and we were combining the pre-recorded talks and the live talks. And I think that the pre-recorded talks worked well, just that we were able to keep on time with the presentations. And what people did that, and it was quite funny, I wouldn't expect that they because they were supposed to be there for live Q&A. So the talks was played, and some people just wear the same clothes. And then because the professional company running the stream, then you couldn't, like, I think that it wasn't too big difference that there was the live talk and the pre-recorded talk. And when the people had the same clothes, and then the stream just switched to the live Q&A, there was, it worked well. On the other hand, we just evaluate the feedback now, and there was quite a lot of people who criticized that it's like, some people said even that it's kind of discrimination or something, that some people are talking live and some people have the pre-recording, which I don't know. I think it depends how that it's communicated, but I think the disadvantage is that if that person wants to react to the previous speaker, and if it's pre-recorded talk, then he can't, and then he just need to use the Q&A. But I must say that with that combination, it worked okay for us, because especially we were able to keep the time. And then the same as Daniel mentioned, we recorded then, and everybody could see that. We didn't share the recordings in advance, because it was the other way around, that we wanted to have that experience from the talks. And it was good. We got the links from the company which was doing that, and we just sent the link to the speakers, and they create their recording, and the company amend this to make it that everything looked the same. So yeah, I think it might be good solution for, especially for somebody who is not very sure, and for the organizers to be on safe side.
Mm-hmm. I guess for large conferences, when you have lots of speakers, it can become a nightmare also to gather all recordings and get them at the right moment and stuff. So you need also special material, I mean, to have the capacity, computers and storage wise, that we don't. Actually, I don't think we could handle that. Yeah, Niels.
Yes, I see the problem for the organizational part to collect all of the recordings. I just wanted to say, the better the technique is, the better the experience is. So, because we haven't talked about like microphones for everyone. You said you organized a microphone for your whole conference, but like in a virtual conference where everybody, like I'm from home now, I rely on my headset, and I hope it works fine. But actually, maybe if you have trouble understanding me because of whatever and the technical parts, that could be improved by pre-recorded sets by a lot. Not only the hearing, but also the visual aspects, because you can check. I see the point David has mentioned, that the people go over and over and over again, which is funny because they can't in a live performance, and they still do live performances, right? Even though if they are recorded, the live performance. I see that you can go into a loophole here, or into a loop. But I wanted to say that for some presentations, that actually might be an advantage to have the technical abilities to make it as good, or as good as possible.
No, that's true. That again, we come to the point that we discussed with Daniel before. Different settings, different techniques, probably. And for a hybrid, it's not a question. I mean, I think it's not a question to be asked. For a hybrid event, you have people on site, so you would have as many on-site presenters as possible, I would say. For an only online event, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, but still, there are also hybrid events. Sorry, Kathy. And there are also hybrid events in place where you have mixed presentations, from in-person presentations and online presentations. And if you use a headset from 1992, people will have problems understanding you. And this has happened in the last 2 years.
We had this discussion about, when people pay a quite high fee to come on site, we thought, okay, can we afford the fact that we have online speakers? I mean, would they be happy to come, make the effort to come and just sit to watch a screen? We had lots of moments where we think about that with Francie, because some speakers had to cancel, and we thought, okay, until it's too late to replace, we will replace the speakers that cancel. They're coming, because for the on-site participant, it's not really fair to propose them only many online speakers. So that's the choice we made, but probably people will get used to it more and more. So it's just that we were afraid, maybe, because it was our first, but it's going to change as well. Mm-hmm. Kathy? Yeah.
Yes, but for me, I mean, Just coming back to what you said, this is not my question, but I guess we probably just have to find a way to sell the impact of being face-to-face, because the added value is the interaction with the other participants, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But we kind of need to find a way to either, just kind of make this interaction more valuable. And I don't really know how to do that. But I'm quite introverted when I go to conferences, and literally I stand in the coffee queue and think, please don't talk to me, please don't talk to me. But then, of course, as part of my job, I need to talk to people. But so I quite like it when there is a kind of, I don't know, if there is some organized fun or organized bit that helps me to interact with people, other than me walking up and saying, hey, are you enjoying your coffee?
It's good.
Yeah, maybe this is becoming more important for face-to-face events. Yeah. The other thing that also relates to that is kind of the equality aspect that is becoming a lot more important now, and a lot of people start talking about it more. And I guess pre-recorded talks, for example, help, because then you could technically put subtitles on the talks, right? Mm-hmm. So, but is that something that anyone has considered in any of their meeting or event organizations so far? Anything that helps making talks more equitable, accessible, and yeah.
Yeah, inclusive also, because we tried very hard, right? Not me personally, but the scientific committee tried at least to have more female speakers, and we know there's a difficulty to find women speakers because there are not so many, they are not so numerous as male speakers in our field. And of course we had some that could not come, but actually if they would have had the possibility to record, maybe they would have said, yes, okay, I record and I'm there for 15 minutes Q&A. So yeah, maybe that could help inclusivity.
I'd like to start. So we had actually for the conference we organized last year, all the keynotes, we had a recording of them. Because when we started to be in touch with the keynote speaker, with the first one, we realized that her connection was not very good. And this was due to problems of the local Wi-Fi environment. So it was just not given where she was. And so we came up with the solution of having all the important talks pre-recorded, so that in case the moment she's presenting, the Wi-Fi collapses and she cannot present anymore, we can at least play the recorded talk. And the idea was that she would then join via phone on the conference or via Zoom, because this is also possible, and this way still be there and answer to questions, but on a much lower coverage required, or like Wi-Fi strengths required. And so this was our kind of backup to make sure that exactly, she, due to or given the bad Wi-Fi circumstances she was living in, she could still be part of the conference. So that was the first thing. And the second one I wanted, so this was for equality. So not so much more on the technical side, but what we did this year and also already last year was that we organized a best practice presentation course for all the speakers, to which they could attend free of charge. And we had one person of our training team that was just providing tips to everyone how to do a fully virtual presentation, how to prepare for the hybrid presentation, how to structure a presentation, how to present it. And we had a theoretical part and also a practical part where people could present the presentation and receive feedback from him on it. And I had the feeling, or at least the feedback I also got from him, was that for some people it was really the first time that they heard about this, and that they were really happy to have this chance to receive feedback and to be able to present their research as people wanted to be presented.
It's a good point. We could have discussed that before in the presentation, because it's part of the measures that we put in place to ensure there's a good outcome. I mean, to ensure for online participants also to have a good experience, right? So it's both for on-site and online participants, but I think it's a very good measure, and people appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if there are any more questions now.
point's been made a couple of times about the use of transcripts. Zoom does have the capacity to have a rolling transcript along the bottom. On the whole, it's pretty good. We've actually had a couple of meetings that were quite large and people did ask for that to be activated. I don't know whether that was English as their second language or there was some other reason why they needed that. But it does come up. I've never used it in a major meeting and I've never used it as a translation, but maybe this is something that will become better. Technology is only going to get better. The ability to do this on the fly is going to improve as we get forward, and maybe this is a feature we can make use of.
And they're sometimes very interesting transcripts, I have to say. We've done that at university, and some of the stuff that came out was borderline. Yeah, Daniel, you've got something to say.
Yeah, regarding captions, that's something, well, definitely the automatic captions sometimes help, even if, yeah, you get some, as you say, some that are definitely not very accurate. It also depends on the field. What we saw is probably today's session that it's general vocabulary would work fine. If you go into something more scientific, molecular terms, yeah, it's harder. What we did have, what we do know is that adding the captions yourself, or even just correcting the captions yourself, takes a lot of time. But we estimated it was like 5 times the length of the video, even if it's correcting a captions that you already have. So I mean, just to say, in case some of you have thought of trying, thinking that it's something that you can do quickly, it's very hard. What we did also, for example, for this summer school, was asking the speakers if they had any kind of transcript, like a script that they had prepared themselves to read during the presentation, because that's something that the participants can appreciate. Doesn't make sense maybe in a conference, but again, in our case, that this was like a workshop for students, for them having the transcript was something useful. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yes. Okay. But I keep this idea also, if at one point of time tutorials and workshops should go hybrid or only online, it can be also a good idea for them to keep something out of the session. Yeah.
Hey, I don't think there are any more questions.
No.
No. Well, then I think we can just conclude the session. If anyone else has any more questions, I guess people can reach out to you. And if you have any more suggestions of what would be helpful and we should do on an Elixir-wide level, I guess you can reach out to David or to me, and we can take that further. Yeah.
Okay, with pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this.